As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendental self. Omagyan timidandasya kirangana shalakaya chaksunamilitam jena tasmai sigurave namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishnam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadanti Svabadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in these verses of Bhagavad Gita, practically in every verse we hear about the mind. And actually in the yoga system, the mind is the general focus. Actually when we do the asanas, the various asanas, and there's so many different asanas, there's many benefits from practicing the regulated process of yoga. For many people, it's the aspect of health. If one lives a sattvic, yogic way of life, then one will naturally be healthy. But there's more to yoga than that, just being happy. Actually, the Ashtanga yogis, when they sit in their position like this, they're doing it to become detached from the material world. Krishna summarizes the material world later on in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Dukhalayama Shashvatam. He says this material world, for all that it's good is here, it's also a temporary place, full of suffering. So the yogi, he wants to transcend this world. He wants to go to the spiritual world. But everyone has in their heart some attraction to this world because we've been here reincarnating in different bodies. Prabhupada says, since time immemorial. Because for one who takes birth, death is certain. Two things are certain, they say, in life. You have to pay taxes and you have to die. But for one who has died, birth is certain. And then again death, and then again birth. If we could look into our past, we would see ourselves in millions of different bodies, sometimes as a king, sometimes as a pauper, sometimes as an intellectual, sometimes as a fool, in this country, in that country, and man and woman and bird and beast. So the yogi wants to transcend this world. So he detaches himself from it by yoga. Just like if you're holding onto a wire that's, there's a storm and some, telephone wires or electrical wires, they come down in the storm, and somehow you grab one of those live wires, you've got this very painful situation. So how did it stop? You let go. You let go, or someone pulls you away. You're detached from the pain. So the yogi, the first step in self-realization is not the bliss and the higher realizations. It's becoming detached from our attraction to this world. So it's mentioned in the first verse that the yogi, he goes to a sacred place like Rishikesh, Haridwar, Bhadrinath, Gangotri, or Vrindavan, where Krishna made his appearance 5,000 years ago, and there's 5,000 temples, there's the Jamuna River and so many saints and sages. Or there's so many places. India is an abode of holy places, not just one or two, but actually millions. So he goes there for seclusion, away from the general mass of people who are busy like bees pursuing material happiness. Of course, some material things we need, but the formula is we should take according to our need, not according to our greed. One can be a yogi in New York or London or Sydney or Sao Paulo, but the secret is to take according to our need, not according to our greed. If everyone takes according to their greed, more than is allotted to them, There's an imbalance in nature, and we have what we have now, environmental crises. The oceans are polluted, the land is polluted, the sky is polluted, not because of the animals. An animal takes what they need. They don't take according to their greed. If you put a bag of seeds into the jungle, the human beings will take the whole bag and go home. The little bird will come and take one little grain, or 2 grains. One for her mate, or her children, like that. So this is the secret. We take according to our need, not according to our greed. So because people are taking according to their greed, there's imbalance in nature. And there's so many solutions they have for the environmental issue. Really, it's a spiritual solution. Because if you're happy inside, if you're satisfied inside, shantushti we say in Sanskrit, if you're satisfied inside spiritually, then you're not enamored by this material energy and greedy to take so many things to satisfy the various senses of the body. But just to be sure, a yogi goes away from the mass of people, and he or she comes to a place like Rishikesh, where there's no sensual attractions, there's just nature. Man created the cities, and God created the country. It's very natural to live in the country. In fact, India for thousands of years was an agrarian society. They lived off the land. They had cows and bulls, and they plowed the land, and they had wheat and fruits and orchards and vegetables, and basically the basic necessities of life were there. But now everything has changed because of Kali Yuga. So as not to be attracted by anything, the mystic yogi, he comes to the Rishikesh and he lives in a cave, or he lives on the banks of the Ganges. And just being in that environment, your senses are controlled. Your senses are not like wild, trying to enjoy sense gratification. But just to be sure, the analogy is given of a turtle. If there's danger, many of us experienced when I was a young boy in California, I'd go to the forest, we had rivers, there were lots of turtles. So I like to catch the turtles. And when I would come, they'd go inside. The turtle's head would go inside the shell, and her 4 legs would go inside the shell. And she was protected like that. So the yogi, when he comes to Rishikesh, just to be sure, he goes within. He goes within. Now, that doesn't mean that our arms and our legs go inside our body. It's an analogy. But the yogi goes within. And he sits in the asana. And going in means, to begin with, that he doesn't engage his senses. He eats a little bit, he sleeps a little bit, maybe gathers some firewood or something like that. But basically he sits like this, and his senses are controlled, like the turtle controls her arms and legs. His senses are controlled by the sitting position. And in that state, there's no agitation for the mind, because the senses are controlled. My senses are not in contact with the material energy. Eat, sleep, mate, defend. This is the business of the senses. Eating, sleeping, mating, fighting. Eating, like this. So his senses are controlled because they're not engaged. And that way, shanti. By detaching himself from the material activities, which are full of stress and agitation, material activities, he stops and the mind becomes peaceful. That's something wonderful, if your mind is peaceful. How can you be happy without peace of mind? And this is one of the attractions of yoga, and it's rightfully so. Life's becoming more stressful, more anxiety in Western culture. So people want to practice yoga to have peace of mind. But that's not the goal. We're, human beings, we're more than that, we're spirit souls. We really want relationships. We want love. Everyone wants to love and everyone wants to be loved. We don't just want to be in our room alone, peaceful. We all know, school and work like that, just get away from it, so we go to a room and lock the door. We go on vacation somewhere. But after a while, we don't want to be just alone, peaceful. We want relationships. So the Ashtanga yogi, he advances to Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the yoga of love, where one develops or reconnects with a lost relationship, with the divine couple, with the Supreme, with Krishna, with God. That's a very satisfying, transcendental, loving relationship. And when one can awaken that divine love for Radha, who's Krishna's consort, and Krishna, then naturally one develops a love for all of Krishna's parts and parcels, all of Krishna's sons and daughters. Krishna says in Gita that he's the seed-giving father of all living entities. We didn't come from nothing. It's not that there's just the Brahman effulgence. Something doesn't come from nothing. So it's not the Brahman, the effulgence of God, that we want to merge into and become one with. To merge into God is something like the parrot merging into the green tree. He's still an individual. He hasn't become one with everything. We're eternally individuals. And as individuals, we hanker for loving relationships. We were created to love. Just like a man and a woman, they marry and they have children. It's natural because children means more loving relationships. Children are very beautiful, they're very cute, they're very, we want to raise them. So the Lord expanded as all living entities. So our natural condition is as divine lovers. So just to become peaceful by practicing the yoga, that's the first step. It's like a ladder. A ladder has steps going up, up, up. So Ashtanga yoga is the beginning. Absolutely required, but the goal is not to free the mind of all anxiety. To free the mind so we can think of something spiritual. To free the mind so we can think of something transcendental. And that we do in japa. We sit and, we don't lay down, and couch potato on a couch and do it. No. We also sit into position which, our senses are controlled and our mind is peaceful. And then to reach the next step in the yoga ladder, we chant mantra. Because it's very hard to control the mind. Krishna says in Gita, the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. For every school of yoga, whatever school you're attracted to, again, the central focus is the mind. The mind, if you can make the mind peaceful and then make the mind transcendental, you've achieved the goal of yoga. So, when you're meditating in a silent way, Krishna addresses this in the Gita. He said, when you're meditating like this, the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. How can the mind be the enemy? Because when we sit and try to become peaceful, the mind goes here, the mind goes there, the mind goes... We've all experienced that, right? You're sitting and meditating, and your thoughts are just going wild, like, when's breakfast? What's my friend doing? I had a fight with my wife. And your mind is like your worst enemy. The mind is the best friend if it remains peaceful and thinks of higher spiritual thoughts. But it's going here, there, and everywhere. Everyone has to be honest in one's practice. This is the difficulty in the yoga system. You're meditating, but the mind is thinking of so many material things. So Krishna says in the Gita, whenever and wherever the mind wanders, you bring it back and fix it on the self. This is a very important instruction to all yogis. Wherever the mind wanders, you bring it back, and you fix it on something spiritual. Here, come back again. And the serious practitioner knows how many times you have to do that. The mind goes here and there. So that's a challenge. If you could, when you're meditating, how many other thoughts have you had than something transcendental? If you're honest, it's whatever. So, a technique in controlling the mind is mantra meditation. By sound. You can control the mind by transcendental sound. Mind is wandering, but if you're singing, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, your mind remains fixed on that vibration. Like an example is, last night we were singing and dancing. While you were singing and dancing, how much anxiety were you in? How much stress did you experience? How many times did you think of home? How many times did you think of eating? Well, of course, the feast is there in the evening. But did your mind wander and have so many thoughts? No, it was just Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. A mantra. Ma means mind and tra means to control the mind. We control the mind by sound vibration. It's a higher technique. It's easier. Why if you have a business appointment, it's on the 64th floor, why take the stairs when you can take the elevator? Of course, nowadays we take the elevator for exercise, but my point is, life is short and then you die. We have to become realized. Why take a more difficult, complex process when you can control the mind very easily by mantra? Mantra is very powerful. It's not a material. Any mantra, and there's so many mantras in the Vedas, they're all meant for controlling the mind. They all have a different potency, they all have a different purpose. But they're transcendental. They're nothing of this world. They come from the spiritual world. Just as the Ganges comes from the spiritual world. And any mystic, any rishi or yogi, they all agree, this is not water. This is liquid prem, this is liquid love. And it comes from the spiritual abode, far beyond this material creation. It trickles in for a purpose of purifying us. So this mantra, Golok Prem Dan Harinam Shan Kirtan, is said in Bengali. It's also come from the spiritual world, but for a purpose. Just like Ganges is here for a purpose. It's not just a flowing river, like we can go rafting on. No, it's there you touch it and you become purified. You may not know it, but it's working. You bathe in that water, it's working. Like you take medicine, and you're a layman, you're not a doctor. You take it, you don't know anything about the chemical composition, how the doctors or the scientists put it together and do all the lab tests. You don't know that. You just take it and you get over your pneumonia, your bronchitis. You don't know how it's working. But because it's authorized, in my country, the FDA, I think, that the federal government has to acknowledge it's okay to take. This is an authorized process. Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam Shangopanga Parshadam Yagnai Sankatan Prayar Yajantihi Shumeda Shaha. In the Bhagavad Purana, very ancient scripture, it mentions that in the age of Kali, which, we're living in this age of materialism, confusion and whatever, this is a very purifying process for everyone, not only India, but the whole world. Atato Brahma Jignasya. The purpose of life is self-realization. We have many responsibilities to our bodies, to our spouses, to our children, to our job, to our country. We can't neglect that. We can't lose sight of the goal. The goal is not to take rebirth. The goal is to go back to the spiritual world. So here's a very simple process that you can practice in your life at any time of the day. You don't have to travel all the way to Rishikesh to practice yoga to attain enlightenment. In your own apartment, you can chant this mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I've said many times Maha Mantra, because whatever benefit one can get from other mantras is also included in this mantra. It's like we say, what is that word? Panacea. It's a strong word. Panacea is something that solves all the problems. So this mantra solves all the problems, because if you chant, then you awaken that love, that divine love, like a golden seed. You water that golden seed of love for the divine, for the supreme, the more you chant, and then that is our qualification for going back to the spiritual world, having pure divine love for the divine couple. So, therefore, as the yogi advances, he takes up the process of not silent meditation, but meditation by chanting. Sound vibration. Sound vibration. By sound we become conditioned, and by sound we become liberated. By hearing all the music that's being produced today in society, it's all about enjoying or lamenting how I'm not enjoying. I lost her, she left me. Ooh. All the songs are like that. Or I met her, I love her. Or, I'm famous, I'm this, I'm that. That sound vibration puts us more in the bodily concept of life. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. That was the gladiators. No. Use every second of human form of life as a means to elevate your consciousness. And to do that, you can control the mind from wandering by not chanting loud, but by, like we say, the Gayatri murmur. It's another mantra, the Gayatri murmur. By softly chanting. We go from silent to soft to very loud. You can still meditate. I also meditate, just to make my mind peaceful. Before I start chanting on my beads, I sit for a minute, and I just free my mind of any material thoughts. And then I pick up my beads and I softly chant. And in the evening, I come to Kirtan like we did last night. That's the process. Why not accept the whole process? Why just stop at one stage? Why climb only one step of the ladder? They're all good. Free the mind of anxiety, some meditation. And then you take up the beads, which we're going to do now, and you chant very softly, and your mind won't go here and there, because this mantra is so potent, and it's so pregnant with bliss, with happiness. It's pure, unadulterated happiness. Like there's gold, right? There's 24 karat gold, 22 karat gold, 18 karat gold, and 9 karat gold. It's all gold. But the ladies like the 24 karat. I've seen. It's nice to dress up, to have a little jewelry. But that richness of that 24 karat gold doesn't. Others doesn't. So this is like the crème de la crème, we say in French. It's the essence of all happiness, compact in 3 words: Hare Krishna and Rama. So we're going to experience that now. Phalina paricchite in Sanskrit means you judge something by the result. So we're going to chant on the beads now, and we're going to see how easy it is to control the mind, because the sound vibration's helping us. And then if we keep chanting, we're going to experience the same happiness that you experienced last night when you were dancing wildly. What was that? To do like that, how many times have you done that in your life? When we were young, we had to go to a party or something, take drugs or, drink liquor or something and just, let loose. But that's artificial, because the next morning you wake up with a headache. Did you wake up with a headache this morning after all the chanting and dancing you did last night? No, because it's natural. This is the natural way of life that we're sharing with you. This is the most natural way of life. So I think everyone has been given a set of beads, yes? Does everyone have beads? Do you have beads? Okay. So my beads are a little bit bigger than your beads. These beads were made from a sacred tree in India called Siddhabakul. There's a whole pastime behind it, but it's a special tree in Jagannath Puri. These beads were made from that tree. But the beads that we're giving you are, or if you have, are made of tulasi beads. It's considered a very sacred wood. So to chant sacred mantras, we can chant on sacred wood. So the technique is there's this head bead, which represents Krishna, and then there's the 108 other beads, which represent different pure devotees of Krishna. Like you see Radha and Krishna, and they're surrounded by their friends who are all pure devotees of Krishna. They have different names. So that's the transcendental community. So these beads represent these different beautiful gopis or milkmaids of Vrindavan. So the technique is you use the middle finger and the thumb like this, and we start on this side, and we just turn the bead like that and softly, not too soft, but so that we can hear, and we meditate just on the sound. It's enough because the sound is non-different than Krishna. The sound vibration is like an avatar. Avatar means one who descends from the spiritual world. We've heard about avatars, not the movie, but the original avatars. Ram, Krishna, Shringa, Vamanadeva. So this is also like an avatar of sound. Can you imagine? Someone should make a movie about this, an avatar of sound, which liberates us. So all we have to do is just listen to the sound. And it's easy to control the mind by listening to the sound. And there's 32 syllables. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Over and over and over and over. And the mystic nature of this mantra is that you never get tired chanting it. You take your favorite song in this world, they're coming out every 3 months, your favorite group, and you get a favorite song, and you just sing it with so much appreciation. But then after a few months, like, when are they coming out with a new record? A new songs. But this, because it's transcendental, it's ever fresh. It never loses its freshness. It never, like everything in this world deteriorates. Even the great mountains of this world, big civilizations, important people, they're here today and gone tomorrow. In time, everything deteriorates. That's not the case with something spiritual. You'll never become satiated with chanting. It's very mystical. If you think about it, 3 words you chant. I've been chanting 52 years on these beads. Every morning I pick them up with new enthusiasm. Because I can feel Cheto Dharpana Marjanam. The obstacles between me and the divine are evaporating. Just like the sun comes out and evaporates the fog. Who can evaporate the fog? Only the sun. So what can evaporate those things that stand between me and transcendence, like lust, anger, greed, envy, jealousy? Sound vibration. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. You can almost feel it washing, like you take a shower. You look down the drain, you can see all the dirt going from your body. So a spiritual process should work. You know, when you when you go into the church, or you go into the temple, or Buddhist temple, or you go into the mosque, or you go to some holy place, you should come out a changed person. You should just, repeatedly go through the act without changing to who you really are. So when we don't have a temple, a mosque, a church to go to, we can sit anywhere and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. And you can look into your heart, just like you look into the drain during a shower. Yuck, that's me? Well, it was you for a few hours. You can feel yourself becoming free from all these inauspicious qualities by repetition of a transcendental sound. It works. It's very mysterious. So I'd like everyone to take their beads like this, your right hand, and on the smaller beads they're maybe not so big, but you'll have a little larger size, and we'll chant together one round. We chant 16 times around every day. I like to chant 25 times around every day, because I have time. I'm getting older, so my responsibilities are less. So I can just. Some days we chant 64 times around, and I know some rishis who chant 192 times around every day. It takes 22 hours. So either they're just totally crazy, or they're approaching full enlightenment. That they can sit, these yogis, and chant 192 times around. There must be something there. They're very intelligent persons. They're most intelligent. And their hearts are completely pure. We can trust them. They become attached to chanting this mantra 22 hours a day. I know a number of rishis like that. I've known them for years. I visit them. They're in the same place for the last 30 years, sitting in the same straw hut. That's all they do. People bring them food, and whatever they need. If they medicine, they don't leave the hut. So there's something to be said about the sound vibration. Kali Kali Nam Rup Krishna Avatar. It's actually described in another shastra. It is the incarnation for this age. Okay? So, we're talking about being peaceful, so I'm peaceful now, being with all of you. Then we'll chant a round on the beads, and we'll finish with Kirtan. The perfect yoga ladder. Om Shanti, then purification through japa, and then we'll have a little Kirtan before the next person comes at 10:30. Although I'd like to stay with you all day, because this is what I love to do, share Krishna consciousness. So take the beats like this, and we'll chant one rounder together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Next beat. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Next beat. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Go Premanandi. Thus the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in the yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. So there you go again. We have the mechanics of yoga to control our senses by the asanas, and thereby detaching ourselves from the material world for the time being. And the result is becoming peaceful. But beyond that mechanics, there's a spontaneous love that has to emerge from the heart. That's the goal of yoga. Krishna makes it very clear. And achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. So when we chant, we should understand it's not a mechanical process. We're repeating these mantras, Hare Krishna, Hare, and we're getting some result. It's more like an appeal. It's more like an appeal to the Supreme Lord. It's called Vandanam. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Shmarnam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Bandham, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. There's different processes in Bhakti Yoga, but this is kind of like an appeal. And when we asked my spiritual master, what is the meaning of this mantra? He said, my dear Lord, my dear Radha, Krishna's consort, please pick me up from this ocean of death and engage me in your service in the spiritual world, which is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss, where every word is a song, every step is a dance, and there's festivities every day. That's the goal. And he said it's something like the cry of a baby for its mother, that the baby's helpless and totally dependent on the mother. So it's like the cry of a baby for its mother. So we're kind of in the same situation, irregardless of our status in society. You know, we may have all the security, a good government, money in the bank, you know, nice house and everything, but padam padam yat vipadam natesham. In this world, there's actually danger at every step. You never know what's going to happen. So we're kind of in an insecure situation. We're dependent upon the mercy of the Supreme Lord to just pull us up out of this material existence back to the spiritual world. So when we chant with feeling. Yes, we have to pronounce every syllable of the mantra, like you have to take every 3 antibiotics 3 times a day for 9 days. So the power is in the mantra, but the mantra is not different than Krishna, so it's like an appeal. There's a beautiful prayer in the one saint's book. He kept his favorite prayers in this book, shlokas we say. Rupa Goswami in Padyavali, he says, my dear Lord, I'm drowning in this fathomless whirlpool of material existence. O you who give shelter to the shelterless, please, just this one time, extend your hand to save me. So it's not they were asking Krishna, you know, who's dancing with his gopis, very blissfully in the spiritual world, all of his friends, you know, to like reach down. Well, he comes for us in the form of his name. Again, Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. There's no difference between Krishna and his name. And Prabhupada said one time, when you're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna's dancing on the tip of your tongue. So it's a rescue process, but it's very blissful. This is the unique feature of this. There's some austerity. We follow rules. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling and speculation. You know, it's pretty strict in these days, but it's to kind of keep us aloof from the material energy so we can be peaceful and pure to chant. There's some austerities, but who would say that the Kirtan last night was an austerity? You put out a lot of energy. You were perspiring, you were exhausted. But what type of austerity is that? You ate so much, you waddled like ducks on the way out of this program. I saw some. Oh, that's an austerity? No. Because we're so fallen in this age, we're born into ignorance. We don't know who we are, who's the absolute truth, what is our relationship with him. We're just total in ignorance. So therefore, Krishna comes in the form of his name to purify us very quickly. And with purification, overcoming the obstacles in the path of transcendence, then that bhakti, that love that's there in the heart for Krishna and for all living entities. Vidya vinaya sampane brahmani gavi hastani sunichava sapakicha pandita samadharshana. Pandit means a learned person. A learned person, he sees with equal vision all living entities. A learned intellectual man or woman, a cow, a dog, and a dog eater. He sees them equally because he doesn't see the body. We're not this bag of flesh and bones and mucus and urine and hair. That's not us. We're the dynamic particle of spirit, the soul, a spiritual person inside this body. And by chanting, you get this vision. You don't see someone as a material body. You see them as they actually are, a spirit soul, an associate of Krishna in the spiritual world. That's a formula for peace. If you can see someone beyond all these distinctions, here's a white man, here's a black man, here's a yellow man, here's a woman, there's this country, that country. We have so many preferences and we have so many persons we don't like based on the body. But if you transcend this bodily concept of life, and you see a person as your brother or sister, like, how can we see each other as brothers and sisters? We have the same Father. Krishna says in the Gita, we all have the same source. So if you have the same Father, then you're brothers and sisters. Sometimes there's that sibling rivalry, but, they don't throw nuclear bombs in a family. So if we want peace on this earth, we have to, there's a spiritual solution to all problems. All the problems are because of a lack of spiritual consciousness, spiritual education, spiritual knowledge. And that's why this book, Bhagavad Gita, is so important. Yes, it's 50 centuries old, it's 5,000 years old, spoken by Krishna, 700 concise verses of wisdom, of which yoga is part of it. But really the solutions to the problem of the world are actually here in the message from transcendence, a message from the spiritual world. So it's a good book before you leave, in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, or if you can stay with us for this month, maybe get a copy of Bhagavad Gita, because everything I've shared with you today, I've learned in here from my spiritual master. I haven't made anything up. This knowledge has been coming down for millenniums of times from great acharyas and great rishis and saints. No one adds to it, no one subtracts to it. It's perfect as it is, Bhagavad Gita as it is. So, philosophy is necessary to explain why we're chanting, why we're dancing, why the food's special, all these things. You need a strong foundation of philosophy so it's not sentiment. We're not chanting out of sentiment, we're chanting out of realization. We're all part and parcel of Krishna. We don't belong in this nasty world. One time my spiritual master said, this material world is no place for a lady or gentleman. We want to go home. And because home is spiritual, we have to awaken our spiritual nature, our spiritual personality to go there. We should never think that we're part of this world. I gave the analogy at a conference recently, like a sailor. A sailor in the old days, he's crossing the ocean on a wooden boat, right? And he's a good sailor because, he varnishes the wood, he polishes the brass, he fixed the sails, he's got the sextant, he's always finding out, where it is. He's like a really good sailor. But he never thinks for a moment he's a creature of the water. He's on the ocean, and he's an expert sailor. I would think a person of the waters, the seas. But he never thinks for a moment that he's a person of this watery element. He's always thinking, when am I going to reach land? He's going through his responsibilities, but he's not getting attached. He's thinking, well, this is a dangerous place, because this boat could sink. So he's thinking, land. And when he sees the land, land ho! Right? So we should go through life like that, responsible. Get a good education, get a career, marry, have beautiful children, be part of society, contribute to society, be aware of, the earth and how we're destroying her, and be concerned with the environmental crises. But, don't lose focus. We're here to cross over this ocean of material existence to the other side, to the spiritual world. Never think that you belong here. We're strangers in a strange land. And the proof is that there's so many problems. There's so much suffering going on. Maybe I don't suffer so much, but there's suffering here and there, and my time will come. It's not our natural state to suffer. We're meant to always be blissful. And that bliss is there in the spiritual world. But to get there, we have to cleanse our hearts of all impurities. And we don't have much time. So therefore, this potent process, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So, we talked about the silent meditation, and we did the japa. How many enjoyed the japa? Did you enjoy chanting? Did your mind wander too much? That's a little bit. It takes practice. Practice makes perfect. So let's conclude this little session with a little kirtan. I have to go maybe in 10 minutes, but if you'd like, we could do this tomorrow morning. Should we make this a regular part of our Rishikesh Kirtan Fest, to do some japa together every morning? Who'd like to do that? Okay. Bear in mind, we don't have to all chant together like that. That's just a training session. You can chant at your own pace. Like I chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. I chant like that. Because I do 16 rounds a day, and it takes me 3 hours, so I chant a little bit faster, but we'll discuss that later on. Now let's dance. Dance. Do I have a drum player?
Yes.
Okay. Kartal player? Yes. Premanjali from Australia, she's an angel. She's such a good chanter. Whoa, you got your sax. He's our bass player, but really his forte is sax. Ethan from Kaapstad, Cape Town in South Africa. He's here by my strong desire. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now you can chant your heart out, louder. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, oh Hare Hare, Hare Rama, oh Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Whoa, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go pray. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna,
Whoa.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Oh,
Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Back home. Go. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chant dance. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare. Ethan. Woo! Yeah. Hey, oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Oh, wait, Prem. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Ram 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Ram wow Hare Hare come on Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Ram Ram go 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 woo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram go 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Thank you. See you tomorrow morning, 9:30, japa.
Can we get another big round of applause for Indradyumna Swami, please? Hare Krishna.
Kirtan, K.
So I guess that's official. Tomorrow morning we'll be doing this japa session again. So please feel free to come. It'd be wonderful to have you here again at 9:30 in the morning. We're doing japa. And now we're going to continue chanting. We'll have more kirtan. And of course, if you haven't already, or if you didn't know, outside we have the beautiful sari tents, the gopi dot tents, the henna. If you'd like to get dressed up and get into the festive mood here at the Rishikesh Kirtan Fest, please feel free. You get to keep the sari. It's all for free, all for all of you. But we're going to continue chanting now. We're going to have more kirtan. And today we have a very special workshop with Gauravani. So if anyone has been to Gauravani's kirtans already over these last few days, you would know that not only is he a wonderful, wonderful kirtaniya and musician, but also an incredible storyteller. And today from 11:30 to 12:30, he's going to be doing a workshop on the stories of the Vedas, or talking about different stories from the Vedas. So really something not to be missed. If you're here 11:30 to 12:30, just after Badahari Prabhu's kirtan, there will be another workshop. So please stay with us. And of course, again, in the evening, we have our evening kirtans. So much to look forward to here at the Rishikesh Kirtan Fest. Thank you so much for being here. Hare Krishna.
Chakshurun militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuddhabada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Badam Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta